If you give a dwarf a job in academia, remove all other responsibilities from their plate, and then leave them to ponder the years away, they will eventually contemplate one of the 300 innovations Dwarf Fortress has to offer into conceptual existence. Basically, all of the topics serve no actual gameplay purpose, and many feel like things dwarves have clearly already invented, but when there are things that can be discovered, there are always bragging rights to be had. Which is what inspired me to build the isolated Jurist McScholar Center for Dwarves Who Can't Read Good on the northern shore of my empire, where I could ramp up the competitive aspect of the research process by turning life in the fortress into an elimination game, where my dwarves would only be allowed to return to society once they had discovered something. Once only one dwarf was left, the doors would be locked, and they would be entombed in amongst the tomes as punishment for their subpar studying. It took a couple years before I could push my dwarves into their scholarly pursuits though. First we had to go through the usual rigmarole of building a shelter to live and work in, and stockpiling thousands of units of food and booze for the long nights of studying ahead. But once everything was finally ready, Jurist, Erdim, Uvash, Litast, Doran, Cole, and Olin were all made into scholars, and the race to leave the innovation station commenced. That is, until they all got depressed within the year, and I had to build each and every one of them a beautiful private bedroom with an attached office linked to the library, just to balance their psychic scales. But once that was out of the way, we were truly off, blazing through the years at 200 frames per second. For 5 years, the dwarves came together to discuss the topics of the day, ponder their areas of interest, and research any potential breakthroughs, all without an innovation to show for it. But that all changed when Jurist Great Gems happened upon the concept of geometric objects, points, lines, circles, and the like, earning her freedom in the process. It took 5 years of research to uncover our first innovation, but with those years of groundwork out of the way, the process began to accelerate. Our second idea, the discovery of discourse on the nature of existence by Erdim Council Earthen, followed a mere 2 years after the first, and suddenly our population was down to 5. Then, only a couple years later, Uvash Dyke Peak discovered the reason why screws are effective, which makes the existences of the screw press and screw pump even more impressive, and left for greener pastures, reducing the number of scholars to 4. At which point, half the dwarves who would be allowed to leave the fortress were already out the door. The tension really began to ramp up, and the innovations were separated by months rather than years. In the year 548, Litast Will Figures followed Uvash's lead and became an engineer, studying day and night to discover the action of the siphon to earn his overworked and vomit-covered release. Then, later within that same year, Doran Manor Caves checked out of the fortress by discovering remedies prepared from animals, leaving just 2 dwarves behind to fight for the final spot. Finally, in an intellectual duel fought back in the library at the top of the tower, Cole Tradepointy faced off against Olin Conflict Staff and came out on top by discovering the origin of rainfall through evaporation and condensation. With all of her compatriots free to ply their trades in the industries of my empire, Olin was sentenced to solitude, abandoned in academia, trapped in the tower, and forced to do what she did poorest of all, ponder. Though, based on her mood after everyone left, maybe she was looking to get Rapunzel'd the whole time. Thanks for watching, an extra thank you to those of you who support me on Patreon, and I'll see you next time.